it's Cheka here, and today we have another reverse 1999 voice actor here to interview. Today we have Willow's voice actor, Madeleine Dee. Yay! If you guys don't know, she is the voice actor of Willow from 2.3. I always confuse the numbers. Like, it's like after 2.0, I'm like, okay, what was the order again? 2.3. Okay, I remember what 2.2 was. Okay, 2.3, guys. Yes, so introduce yourself.
Sure. So I am Madeleine Dee, and I am a voice actor and a film actor and a screenwriter, and I absolutely love the reverse 1999 community. I love being a part of the game. I have just felt so welcome and loved, like, every step of being involved, and I just wanted to give a heartfelt shout out and say thank you so much for making me feel so welcome, and I love all of you so much.
Yes, we all love you. Everyone in the comments, say how much you love Madeleine right now. And thank you, because honestly, you did a phenomenal job. Let me just say, like, there was this, we're getting into it, but there's like this scene, literally so many scenes with Willow almost made me cry, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I felt it in here. I was like, you did such a good job. I was sitting there while I was playing, I was like, nah, Oscar, give her an Oscar. This was so good. Like, you did such an amazing job. Willow is very much a very complex character, and you just did an amazing job. So, just giving you your flowers. Just say you did great, and the community also agrees. We all love Willow, so.
That makes my heart feel so happy.
Okay, let's get into the first question. How did you first approach getting into Willow's mindset when you were cast for the role?
That's a great question. So when I was auditioning, the breakdowns are very, very, very simplistic. So you basically get like one or two sentences about who this person is, and it's pretty vague. And they'll give you like very specific notes, like an age range or a voice or something like that. And this was basically like, this is a very, complicated, loyal, grouchy person with a heart of gold.
Aww.
And she, it was just like a really cute sentence where I was like, yeah, I got that. I can do it. Sort of like bristly and like secretly I'm very tender. And then they wanted her to be British, but have a Northern Irish past. And so a lot of what I did was I did a lot of research to audition, and so I have Irish ancestry.
Ooh.
And then I have extensively studied like a modern RP accent. And so I have a very easy time doing a British accent, and then I have a pretty okay time doing an Irish one, even though there are a lot of different dialects even within London, and there are different dialects in Northern Ireland and a ton of different dialects in Ireland, and there's probably hundreds of different ways that people speak in that region of the world. And so I basically went and like did a little bit of research, and then I went and I listened to some of my friends who live in Los Angeles. There are actually quite a large number of Irish people in like just the acting community, and so I just like talked to my friends who were from Ireland. I sort of like parroted the way that they spoke. And so, and I put something together and I put it on tape, and it was just one of the easier auditions that I've ever done, because I felt it, like I understood the assignment. They gave me a sentence about her. They told me what she should sound like. I sent in my tape, I got my call back, and yeah, I know that that's not a great answer for like how I prepared for it necessarily, because it was just one of the easier things I've done as an actor. So, to kind of like find her and put her on tape and send her in. But, sometimes that's how you know that something's right for you. It's just, you just know and you just do it. So.
Yeah, it just feels right. You just feel it. Especially when you were talking about the accent, I totally even forgot that Willow has an accent, and I was like, It's like I always expect the voice actors to have the same accents, and then when I talk to you, you guys are just like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh." So when you were talking about the dialect, I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." I feel like you always have to like, which I really appreciate as well. I've noticed this with a lot of Reverse 99 voice actors. You guys have like to study the accents, and then especially with like the characters with very strong accents, like you guys do it so well. Like we're always surprised that you guys don't have the accents. We're like the duality, man. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's actually amazing. So it's like even the dedication. You said it was easy for you, but I'm just like, that's not an easy thing to do in general. So like props to that. Like that learning a completely different accent and being able to convey different emotions, say different words in that accent, like it just sounds very hard. So you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. You're such a sweetie.
Okay, let's get into question 2. What was your initial impression of Willow's story when you first read the script?
Ooh, that is a really great question because I didn't get to read the script. So this game has to stay very secretive because everybody wants to leak stuff. Everybody wants early access to what's going to be going on next. So they have to hide a lot. And so I actually never got to see the script or the story, and all I received were just lines.
Oh.
And so, yeah, so you just kind of, you get to prepare as much as you'd like to, but especially with voice, you get to just read it off of the iPad. And so you don't have to memorize anything. You can be very in the moment. And so I basically just got like an Excel spreadsheet of lines, and I skimmed them, and then I went in and I did my job because I didn't actually know what was happening most of the time. And I did get to ask the director kind of like what was going on and just say like, you know, like, who am I speaking to? And like, you know, what's the premise, you know? And he'd be like, this is a small child and she annoys you, but you also like her. And you know,
I wonder who that is.
Right? And so it was just such a funny, cute thing because truly most of the time you have no idea what the actual context of what's happening is. And so it's more so like, say this like you are excited and a little frustrated and sort of tired, but you just had a cup of coffee.
Whoa.
And you're just like,
that's a lot.
It's very specific.
Like, that's a lot.
Yeah. So yes, to answer your question, I didn't actually know what the story was until everybody else knew what the story was. So I got to, in real time, watch my work and hear my voice and see how everybody was reacting to it, and like just the power of the story got to hit me as hard as it hit everybody else, which was kind of magical. Like I actually really loved it.
Was there a particular scene or monologue that you found the most emotionally difficult to perform? And this one's a really good question because I really want to know. There's a lot going on with Willow.
Yeah. That is a really great question. I wouldn't say I found any of them difficult. It was more so I had a lot more freedom with the monologues than I did with anything else that I said. And so, you know, if you have this short line, there's a lot more micromanaging of like sort of how it needs to sound. There's more instructions, and it's sort of like, you know, this needs to sound more confident, or this needs to sound like this. But when we would get to anything that was very emotional or went on for a while, including like the chanting and the scene where she's like scrubbing the cauldron and the scenes where she's at the lake with the swan.
A black swan? Here? Really? That's why you ought to go out more often. Else you'll miss these precious moments. A chance to see something special, like a black swan. Look at it. Some creatures are born with these smooth, pitch-black feathers. But it's only under the sunlight that you can see their iridescent shine. That's when all the other animals can only look on and feel themselves inferior. They can never stand out from the crowd in the same way.
So the lake was actually the very first long thing that I did. It was the first monologue, and they just told me to go. Like, they got to the beginning and they were like, just go. And so I did, and like everything went totally quiet. Blue Hawk went quiet, directors went quiet, and I just read it. And because I had only skimmed the lines before I got into the studio, I was feeling everything in real time. So as I was reading it, I was reacting to it. And that whole part I did in one take, and I just did it. And so then afterwards, when there was like a good probably 20 to 30 seconds of just pure silence after I finished, and then they came back in and they were like, moving on.
They said,
Yeah, and so then
next, please.
I think he had me go back to maybe like the last sentence or something like that, like just for safety, you know, just to make sure that like if they edit it and like the end gets clipped off or something, they could like have a part that they took from somewhere else. But yeah, it was such a lovely thing to really be able to like put like organic feeling and personal experience into those big scenes, you know, and not have somebody like, you know, kind of line by line say this is what it needs to sound like. Those parts were the time when it really got to be like me as a person and me as an artist, just doing my thing. And it felt so good for them to just say like, done, okay. And then we just moved on to other stuff. And I absolutely loved that. That was, as an actor, that was one of the most delicious things I've done.
Let me add on to that. Done, you did amazing. You I was like, that scene specifically, especially the one when she was at the lake and seeing the swan, like slowly watching that all unfold, and at the same time as she continued to break down, and that scene was like, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering it. That scene was so sad, because I feel like that, like, of course, like at the beginning of the story throughout, you were like sort of like feeling like, at first you were kind of like suspicious, like who is this woman they're talking about, and then you realize what happened, and then you started just feeling bad. But that was a time where it was like sending it home, if that's the saying. Like that was the time when like you really understood like why she's the way she was, because you can, like, that was the perfect scene to see her completely, like, I would say vulnerable to the audience as well. And hearing you did that all in one take is just like, wow. Damn, you're in tears at the end. One take. Whoa. They were just like, go for it too. So you just sort of just did your thing, and you guys did amazing. You and the director as well, but you did so great, because that scene is definitely one of my favorites, I would say, out of like all story events, because I felt that, especially with like the perfectionism and not feeling like sort of good enough is like really something that hits home. So that scene, like, I felt like, in a way, like, I was like, dang, Willow, you understand me so well.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Because yeah, that was, all of those elements were sort of choices that I got to make in the moment. And so what was really fun about that part was that voice, that sort of like inner monologue for Willow. Her voice is like this very, like, I don't know like what the word is, but it's a very kind of perfect British accent in the sense that it's just like, it's very proper and it's very precise. So it's like this perfectionist version of the way that she sounds, you know, because Willow at such a young age moved from Ireland to England, and then in order to fit in and, you know, to get into this world of witchcraft and dancing, and basically she got thrown into a new world and changed her accent in order to try and fit in. And I wanted her to kind of have always struggled with getting rid of the past and like kind of covering over that Irish accent that only comes out at certain times. And so, when this voice with this like very, very extra posh British accent is like, criticizing her and in her head making her feel worse and worse and worse. And then she's sort of like mocking these little parts of Willow's Irish accent. There are like these little touches of her kind of like making fun of Willow. And it was just such an interesting thing to like make a choice like that and have the directors say like, yeah. And then that was one of the first things. I think that was actually the first session. And so making that choice that she's always got this like running monologue of this very unkind voice that's like her own voice speaking to her and criticizing her and making her feel worse, I thought was such an important part of Willow's experience. Because, she could have been played as somebody who sort of rises above everything, and she's she's very proud, and she doesn't have any time for what anybody has to say. But I speak from personal experience that when you are very different, especially when you're younger, and people respond to that and sort of start to systematically treat you differently and treat you badly, ostracize you, make fun of you, be outright mean to you, or abuse you, it's very difficult to always rise above it.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to keep telling yourself like, it's fine, I'm fine, and someday it'll be better, and someday things will be easier, and I don't agree with what they say. But even if you don't agree, it's difficult to let the way people treat you, to not let the way people treat you eventually seep into your mindset. And so instead of having Willow just be this kind of one-dimensional angry character, or be this one-dimensional sort of like prim and elegant and above everything, I wanted her to struggle. I wanted her to have moments of thinking like, they're right. I am just this and I am just that, and maybe I'm not worthy, and maybe there's a reason why people don't want to spend time around me. And I think it gave her more dimension for her to really be struggling with a great deal of complexity, as opposed to playing the character too simply. So, which I could talk about that for like 3 hours. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, it was really lovely to do that scene and to get to kind of open up this idea of there being this running monologue and commentary in her head that she's struggling with all the time. Because I think one of the most important things about being human is that we're all struggling with something all the time, all of us. And some people have more struggles. Some people have struggles that in some ways feel more difficult than other people's struggles. It's not a good use of time to weigh your own struggles against somebody else's. Struggles are struggles, and struggles are hard. But there's always something more going on that you don't know about people. So especially if you see somebody who has been just beaten down by being abused or ostracized by others, and they seem kind of grumbly and grumpy and angry, and they're off-putting, and maybe you don't really like them very much, and maybe you don't know how to feel about them, which is kind of what you were supposed to do up until that point. Up until you get to the lake, you're like, why is this person the way that they are? Why is she like this? Why is she being unkind to a child? And like, why is she so unhappy? Because people find it difficult to like people who are unhappy or unpleasant. And if they don't get to find out why that person is unhappy and unpleasant, sometimes they write them off. But it's really easy to forget that everybody struggles, and that sometimes you don't get to see what's going on with somebody. And so I really loved that they had that moment where you got to sort of, even if you still didn't really like Willow, you got to kind of like love her at that point in the story. And then from there, it was just kind of off to the races with seeing all the complexity to Willow's character and her story.
as well as when she was also, let me just say, I just love how I feel like every way you conveyed the character was intentional. So even looking back on it, like even after everything you just said, I'm like, that's why it was perfect. Because she put meaning behind not even just the words that you were, that you were saying, even with how she was saying it, to the accent, to the everything. It's just like, wow. And it's like you even saying how it was sort of like an inner battle between Willow, old Willow from Ireland, and then Willow now. It really just makes you look back and just think of like, wow, like that's probably like all those little meanings is probably why it hit so hard, as well as the relatability, because I'm sure there's definitely a lot of people who relate with that, the sort of perfectionism, because even on stage when you're watching Willow and like you're just watching her, like as a person who's just going to see the games to watch people perform, you wouldn't realize the amount of struggles she's been through to get to that point. And I know we're only at the third question and we're talking so much about Willow's character.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But I have so much to say just as well, as there was this one line where it sounded like Willow was kind of unsure about whether she even really liked the sport because of just how much pressure was on her throughout her whole childhood up to like even that moment. She was like, there was a point where she was like questioning whether she even like enjoyed doing it or whether she felt like in a way like it just had to be perfect, and it was all that pressure that kind of in a way masked all the joy and like covered it up as well. And that part, I was like, I noticed it. I was like, the way she said that line, I was like, does she actually even enjoy the sport, or does she feel like she's doing it because she has to, or is she doing it because she like, or she did love it at first, but then it just became too much. And especially after she lost her leg, it was just like she kind of didn't want to like think about it in the way where she still loved it because she can no longer do it, even though she could. And at the end, we learned that she's still a girl boss and she still got that. She still got it in her.
Heed me, your power impart, as you are me and I your counterpart.
The smoke is clearing.
Everyone, come back! The games are on again!
But it was even just like throughout the whole story, like you could tell there were just so many things she was like struggling with like at the same time. And I can't imagine how overwhelming that would feel as like even just like a person just dealing with that. So I feel like you explained it, like there's so many layers to her characters. It's like so complex. So that's why I think she's just a really interesting character as well. So yeah. Okay, question 4. Crazy how that was all question 1, 2, and 3. But
Sorry.
but like that's good. That's good. We'll get more into the like deeper stuff in the later questions. But how did you prepare emotionally for Willow's darker scenes, especially her moments of self-hatred, which we kind of talked about a little bit with the swan scene?
Yeah, so for that, this is gonna, I guess, maybe sound a little bit strange, but what I had to do as an actor in order to not hurt myself is I had to learn that emotions are sort of like physical memories. And if they like our emotions and our experiences, they live in our body. And if we can't find a way to release them, they can hurt us. And also emotions are really exhausting. They're so exhausting. And if you, especially if you have to do a scene where you're like crying over and over and over again, if those are real tears and you're bringing them out from a place of pain within yourself, eventually they're gonna dry up. They're gonna dry up pretty fast. And you're just gonna end up like really tired and sad. And so one of the things that is recommended is, instead of like actually using your own pain to bring tears, you sort of do certain things from like a physical memory. And so, for example, if you need to be angry on a dime, then you remember, like, what do you feel like physically when you get angry? And you like, you shake. Do you ball up your fists? Do you tighten your jaw? Do you furrow your brow? Do your nostrils flare? Like, you just get like really mad really fast, and then you can do your line. And then as soon as the line's over, you just like shake that out of your body, and it's gone. Because if you channel anger in your body, your brain will follow suit, and you can use that until you let it go.
Okay.
And so, like with crying, I know that when I cry, it's, I'm gonna furrow my brow, and I am going to tighten certain parts of my face, and I'm gonna feel pressure right here. And I'm just going to get really sad all of a sudden, and I'm going to bring up tears. I'm going to be able to do a couple of lines that sound like I'm crying, or I will actually cry. And then I just do like a little dance and shake it out of my body afterwards, because otherwise, that sadness or that anger is going to stay in my body, and like, get my heart rate up, or make me sad, or, you're gonna be able to hear tears in my voice or something like that. But for the things that are very, very emotional, especially if they're like one-liners, I will just channel that feeling. I will use it, and it comes from an authentic place of my emotion. It is real. It's just not me actually being like, when I lost my puppy when I was 4, and now I'm gonna be thinking about my puppy for an hour. It's like, you gotta find a place in you where you remember what it feels like to be sad. You use that and you move on. And so that's one of the things that I do to take care of myself as an actor is I don't think about things that actually like make me upset in order to upset myself. I use physical memories. And so that keeps me healthy and allows me to do longer sessions and not be completely exhausted by everything that I do.
What I feel like that is something that's like completely different from all the stuff I've heard about when you're acting these scenes. Because when people are saying, how do you cry on command? Well, you have to think of something really sad and then just like start crying. I'm like, that sounds so emotionally draining to me.
Nope, not a good idea.
Right. So like the way you put it is like definitely, it's like so different from what you would think, but it makes so much more sense, because like obviously like emotions stay with you, like you said, and when you're doing it more from a physical standpoint, it is just easier to just brush out than to actually make yourself upset, and now you're thinking about this really dark thing and you're in this really dark place, and you just have to bounce right back, even though you purposely put yourself all the way down, and now you have to come all the way back up for the next part. And like, so what you said made absolutely more sense, because short little story, when I was in high school there was a theater class, right? And they had to like cry. And so like that's what they would say. They would say, you need to think of something really dark, and that's what they were telling all the kids. So that's how they were channeling their tears. And like somebody bawling, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Babies, don't torture yourself. Don't do
exactly. So I'm like, all of you, if any of you guys are theater kids, if your teacher tells you to do that, don't do that. It's not good for your mental.
It is not. It is really not. Oh, here's a friend.
Wait, Puppy. Wait,
Oh,
gosh.
this is Pearl.
Oh, Pearl is. Oh, that is the prettiest dog I've ever seen. Oh my god.
Did you hear that? Oh god, that just made her ego even bigger.
She's like, I'm the actual voice actor of Willow. I played Willow, you don't know.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I did make a Flutter Page costume for her, and there's pictures of it on my TikTok. But it's really cute. I made her like the little scarf and everything, and her name
Oh,
is Flutter Pearl.
Flutter
Yeah,
Pearl. You
we
guys,
had a tea
check it
party.
out. Check it out. Oh my gosh. I need to check again. I need to see Flutter Pearl. Oh my gosh.
It
Flutter
was so
Pearl.
much fun.
That's so cute. Wait, so you actually cosplayed Willow as well, right?
I did. I made like head to toe. I even made like an artificial leg,
Whoa.
and everything. And I'm actually gonna wear it tomorrow at the anniversary event.
I'm
I'm so
so excited,
excited.
guys. This might be coming out past the time, but you will see her in the vlog because I'm going to.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Oh,
I'm so
good.
excited.
Good.
I might have more questions for you in person in your cosplay, but we have to take a photo together. I'm so excited. Yeah.
I would love that.
I was like, when you mentioned LA, I was like, is she gonna be there tomorrow?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there the whole time. I'm gonna see how long I can wear the costume. I've been doing a little bit of tinkering the past couple of days. So I made the leg more comfortable. And so it's really important to me that the representation is there. I absolutely love that Willow is like positive, awesome, real disability representation. And that means everything to me. And especially like, disabled players who felt seen and emotionally resonated with it. It means everything to me. And I would rather show up tomorrow with my Willow artificial leg and nothing else on, as opposed to show up tomorrow with the rest of the costume and no artificial leg. It's very important to me. So I've been tinkering with it to make it like more comfortable, but still really cool looking. And then I like repainted the details on the cape. And I've just been doing a little bit of tailoring, but I'm pretty sure I'll have it on all day long tomorrow. If I just can't do it after a few hours, then I might like put something else on and then maybe put it back on. I'm not sure. But my goal right now is I'm showing up in it, and I'm probably gonna stay in it the whole time.
I'm so excited. I love cosplay. Willow
So
as
excited.
Willow. I'm so excited for that. Okay. But back to the questions. That was y'all's little sneak peek. You guys probably already saw the vlog. You probably saw her cosplay, but this is us talking about it in the past.
Love it.
Next question. Did you draw from any real life experiences or inspirations to portray Willow's pain and isolation?
I'm obviously not a lovely ballet witch from 1930, but I had enough in common with Willow's experience that it was very easy for me to make strong choices about her story and about the influences that I wanted to have. I have always been an odd person. I will talk and talk and talk. I will say very strange things. I can be very awkward. And I had a really difficult time speaking when I was younger because it kind of felt like everything I said was weird. I was always saying something wrong. I was always saying something strange. I was kind of just always doing everything wrong in the eyes of other people. And so it didn't take very long for me to start getting bullied. So I had a very long stretch of my youth where I was just very unpopular and I was mistreated by pretty much every other student I was around. Most adults weren't very nice to me, including like parents and teachers. And I just had a really difficult time feeling accepted. I felt misunderstood all of the time. And one of the things that people don't really talk about is that a lot of bullying, it doesn't like the actual definition of bullying is, I believe that people sort of systematically try and force you to act differently than how you act and force you to be different than who you are so that you can conform in some way. And that gets represented in so many different ways in TV and film. And it's usually like some big angry boy takes some kid's lunch money and gives him a swirly, or whatever the case might be. It's usually kind of the same stuff over and over and over again. But for me, what I experienced was that like systematic, everything I did was wrong. And there came a point where I had like several different reputations that just didn't even make any sense. And I was like scary, and I was creepy, and I was a wild child who was partying and doing wild stuff. And I was like reading Lord of the Rings at home. And like playing video games, and like I was doing zero of the things that I was, rumored to be doing. But sometimes once there's a target on your back and you're just an odd person, it gives everybody free license to just be aggressive towards you and to be unkind and to be a part of it, but mostly to just watch it happen and do nothing about it. And so I spent years and years having most people around me just mistreat me and, call me names and be rude and leave me out and say awful things about me, either to my face or behind my back. And I found it difficult to make friends, and I found it difficult to, get a boyfriend. And there were all of these things that it just felt like life was really challenging, and I didn't understand why. And I was just sort of being left out and being mistreated just because I wasn't normal and I wasn't making an effort to be like other people, and that didn't do anything good for me socially, And so there were times when I struggled with just being frustrated, and I started to be, paranoid. And there were times when, people would befriend me so that they could basically get my defenses down and then be unkind to me. And, they would bring me into their friend group so that I would tell them things about myself, and then they would like use those things against me or make fun of me. They would like have conversations with me and get me excited and talking about stuff I really loved, and then they would go off and make fun of me. And, it got to a point where I was like paranoid. And so if somebody wanted to be my friend, I was like, why? And I just expected that people were going to be unkind to me after a certain point, and I went in and out of phases of that, and I felt frustrated sometimes. Sometimes I felt really sad. Sometimes I wondered if they were right, and maybe I should just try to be different. And sometimes I felt angry. And so, that was particularly why it was so important for me to bring so much depth and complexity and such a range of emotions into Willow's experience, because you do have that inner monologue, and your inner monologue is sort of like, well, maybe they're right, or like, you are pretty weird, and it's you do have to struggle with, you really only have two choices when a lot of people don't like you, and your choices are you agree with them or you disagree with them. And if you disagree with them, which is what I did 99.6% of the time, but there were also those moments where I was like, I am so tired, and I just want to like have more friends and like, go out and have a good time and like not have to worry about why people are being nice to me, or, whatever the case might be. It was important for me to bring that complexity in so that Willow wasn't just one-dimensional. I wanted her to have a very real human experience of having dealt with, at this point in the story, she spent most of her childhood being like a perfectionist dancer who was abused by her teacher for years and years, and she didn't get to have any friends. She didn't get to go out.
So, will I be freed from pain if I keep training?
Shush. Press your head against your shin, just as the divine sun did.
Okay.
Closer! I want that head tight against your shin.
Already kids were starting to, make fun of her, and her own friends were turning on her because she wasn't going out and she was going to dancing instead of spending time with them. They made fun of her. They said that she was training to be a clown. And there was so much that Willow had to go through at such a young age. And so even in that montage of when she's young Willow, that was such an interesting thing to record, because within a couple of minutes you see the difference between this timid, sweet, kind of like good-natured, fun child Willow, who in 2 minutes becomes this frustrated, kind of like sassy, like, just get off my back, I've got it, and just leave me alone. But that change is so stark within her because she's already seeing what it means to be different and to choose a different way of going in life, and the ramifications of making different choices and not going along with the crowd and deciding to do something else, but then that's just as difficult as any other path. And so she kind of lost her childhood, and then she became this dancer on a pedestal who everybody kind of wanted to be. She was losing her love of being a dancer because it was difficult and it was time consuming and grueling. She didn't even know why she was still doing it, and really the answer was she just wanted to be the best, but she didn't even really know how much that actually meant to her. That was just the goal. And then she lost her leg and she couldn't do that anymore. It had become her entire identity. And then she essentially went into hiding and became somebody who everyone feared and lied about and ostracized. And she's been going through at least a decade of people treating her terribly, and invading her space, making fun of her, lying about her, leaving her out, and and who knows what else. You didn't see everything that happened to her as this this recluse. And so yeah, it's I don't even remember what we started talking about here. But yeah, the personal experience. So yes.
Yeah.
So 23 minutes ago, when you asked me that question, yeah, I have a lot of personal experience that it was really important for me to bring in, so that I could make this character as human as possible, and that was really important to me.
You saying that is also really important to me because when like all the stuff you kind of described about your own personal experience, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional about it, but I feel like I definitely could relate with that, which isn't even something that I usually talk about, because about the whole like feeling like other people think you're weird, and like you yourself, you said you denied it like most of the time in your head, because you could either choose to accept the things they're saying or you could deny the things they're saying. And I feel like personally my reaction was more completely the opposite. Instead of like denying it most of the time, I accepted it most of the time, and because of that, instead of remaining like myself, I guess I sort of conformed to what I thought other people would prefer me to act like. And I feel like that's still something that I deal with a little bit now, but I feel like that's why I could relate with Willow a lot, because I would sort of do the same thing where I try to do
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with getting emotional. It's okay.
But I would try to do the same thing, and I would just sort of shut myself off. Like, instead of taking the chance to actually like speak to people, I'd rather just sit by myself. And like, there would even be a little Cheko lore. There would even be this professor that would come, and he would be like, "Why are you sitting by yourself? Like, come sit with me in my class." So I'd get to hang out with him because we had a lot of the same interests. We both like anime and video games. So me and that professor would go and just talk about anime and video games. And when you'd see, I'd be sitting like alone, which at my school was called silent lunch, where you would go there if you got like punished. But I was going there just to be away from all the other students because I was like, I can't deal with them. So I just sat by myself. And it's also like, in my sense, it's also like having that Flutter page, that person that reaches out to you to be like, hey, like, do this thing you enjoy, come on, like, everything will be okay. And
yeah,
like, I guess that's why for me there were a lot of parallels, because I felt like I was in my past. And You know, and like that teacher in a sense was like my flutter page was like, hey, let's talk about all the things other people usually think are weird, because I also like those things, and it's not actually weird because it's actually super cool, and there are people who are interested in the same things you're interested in. It's just finding the right people. And
Totally.
especially like when you're younger, like kids are so mean. Like I don't even want to get into it, but kids are mean. But especially when you like grow up, you find a lot more people who are interested in the same things you are, and you realize this actually isn't weird. Like this is actually really cool, and like a bunch of other people think it's cool too. So
you just gotta find those people.
Exactly. So when you were talking about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I see it. Like I was like, yes. But you see us, we're cool. So you know, yeah. We're cool. We're the cool kids now. So yeah. It was very much like I just love that you said that, because I was like, it's like when you're talking about the things, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's also why I felt that too. So it's like the way you're so in tune with the character is just love it. It's amazing, and it makes me love Willow even more.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means everything to me.
Yes. So more Willow content, please bring Willow back.
Please.
I love Willow.
Me too.
So next question, what was the biggest challenge bringing out Willow's vulnerability while maintaining her harsh exterior? So kind of like the duality where she's like super soft on the inside, but on the outside, like the way she treats everyone, she was just like, get away. In a way.
That was very cute, and I don't think that would scare me away. That was very cute. Yeah, so as far as her tenderness went, I wanted those moments to be so important, but also to be like very subtle. And that was one of the choices that I got to make, is when her Irish accent would come out. And so one of the things that I noticed personally in the past was that everybody kind of talks with a little bit of an affectation. Like everybody's kind of trying to hide a little something with their voice, and like sound really nice, and like everybody has like a telephone voice, and like a voice that they use when they order at a restaurant, and it just sounds like really, really nice and adorable. And so I noticed that like when people feel like comfortable and or vulnerable, there are like these little things that come out in their voice, like if they have an accent or something. And so what I wanted to do was, in certain moments when Willow's defenses were getting broken down, I really focused on, most of the time she has basically like the same way of speaking. You know, it's this very controlled British, just lovely, serious British voice that's basically like monotone. Not fully monotone, but basically it's very controlled. And so when she gets shaken out of that for any reason, if she's losing control over a situation, if she's getting angry, if she's getting sad, if she's remembering something that's very difficult for her to remember, and she's struggling with coping with that thought, or like trying to push it down, or Flutter Page is finally getting through to her, or you know, whatever it is that's breaking down her defenses, I wanted her to be Irish. and sort of like have these moments where it was peeking through. And so it helped me to make those changes and bring out those differences where you're actually starting to see those defenses weaken. Those are the moments you'll notice the most that she turns Irish, and has a little less control over what she's saying and how she's speaking. So that was something that was not necessarily a challenge, but it was more so like a very pointed decision to switch voices,
Mm-hmm.
and to like let there be more emotion in the actual sound of the voice. So yeah, I was more so like I was doing a different character, as opposed to anything else.
That's actually, I love the way you said that it was a different character, especially when it's like she's sort of shedding that perfectionism skin and like turning in a way back to her before the system of dance and like her constant like, you know, all the pressure kind of built up. And you know, I'm just glad that Flutter Pearl was there to save the day.
Flutter Pearl!
Flutter Pearl! And that and that Willow was able to feel like vulnerable and comfortable to the point where she was able to like sort of shed that hard exterior, even though it didn't seem like it at first, okay? Especially near the end when there were moments like when she sort of felt more like comfortable with Flutter Page, and she was like, she didn't kick me out today, so I guess things are good. Like that. And
yeah,
then,
that's go ahead.
Oh no, you go.
I was just gonna say I love the things that Blue Pock put into the story, that like there are these parts of a story that make it really good. And one of the things that's really important to story structure is that the hero or the protagonist needs to be struggling, and they believe that the way that they're handling their struggles is the best way to handle their struggles, and they don't want to change, and they don't want to be alerted to the fact that they really need to do something different, and they need to do a lot of work in order to get to the end of the story when something has changed for the better, and they know that their MO, the way that things have been going, can't last any longer. And there's a character who's the helper who comes in and basically bothers them until they decide that they're going to change, and then they go on their adventure, you know, that they're going to grow and learn and get better. And I just really loved that it was this sweet kid who could fly and had like 8 bows in her hair, and she was so sweet. And I love that scene where she's like, I don't know why you're pretending to be the big meanie, Miss Willow. You know, you give me cake and lemon and bread, and you're nice, and everybody knows it, and you can't hide it anymore. And I was just like, I just thought that was such a sweet thing. And then I also really appreciated, though, that I feel like a lot of times in stories, especially ones that are more brief, you know, like Willow's story was an event as opposed to, you know, this ongoing thing. And in a lot of films and shorter shows, people really want to see the hero completely change by the end of the story. And I thought that it was really important that whoever wrote this story at Blue Pock wanted to make sure that Willow didn't do a 180, that she didn't completely turn into a different person in a short amount of time. And I thought that that was actually even more endearing, because she was still kind of like prickly at the end, and she didn't really want to, you know, like deal with Caroline anymore, but she was also like, I guess you're still here, and I guess that's fine. And like, you know, and then I pictured that she was sort of like grousy about it, but then she like had tea with Caroline afterwards. And then like, you know, she adopted Flutter Page and like turned Flutter Page's mom into a snail and put her into a jar that they like, you know, keep in the kitchen or something. And like, you know, she gets to live, but she has to be a snail in a mason jar forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I loved that she wasn't a completely different person, and that you got to see real human depth, and that you get to see these changes and these little flashes of her wanting things to be different. And I feel like you get to the end of the story and you hope that she is going to end up more comfortable, more happy, that she's going to be kinder to herself. Because I think one of the things that's really nice about as you get to the end of the event is that there's far less of that internal monologue. You know, she's not attacking herself by the end, and that's huge progress for her, and that's the big change. But yeah, I thought it was really good that she wasn't just like a different person at the end of the event.
I love how you said at the end, which is kind of like her character as well. She wasn't necessarily perfect at the end, but you could see a whole bunch of progression from where she was at the beginning to where she was at the end. And yeah, she still has work to do, but we're not even talking about perfectionism no more. Let's just let Willow be confident Willow. And that's what she was at the end. She just walked in there. She was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Oh, you know that routine you did last week? Take some notes. Let me show you how to do it right. Like that kind of attitude. I was like, damn, Willow, okay. Okay, get up on that stage. She's like, fog, not a problem. She just started dancing. I'm like, she's a girl boss deep down inside, and she knows it. Like deep down, like she knew she was that girl. It was just like taking a little, tug and pull to bring her back out again. But when she came out, she showed out, and the sun came out as well. So
it was the cheesecake.
Exactly.
Because Flutter Page, I love that, you were talking earlier about how there was that line where it sounded like Willow didn't even really enjoy dancing anymore, and like it was really important that she find a way to enjoy the thing that she's passionate about again. And I thought it was really sweet. One of my favorite things about children in general is that they just say things and they're so insightful sometimes, and they'll be like picking their nose and like eating crayons, and they'll say something so insightful, and then they'll just go back to being like nonsense, and so I think that it was really sweet that that Flutter Page was seeing that Willow had really lost her excitement and her zest for what she did, and she did recognize that Willow did used to love the routines, and so for her to pinpoint like, well, what is it that really made you happy and fueled you to do it, and then all of a sudden Willow's Irish and she's having these memories of being taken for cheesecake, and there's this approval from her mother, and there's this time when she got to treat herself because she won, but it was more so about just purely enjoying something and getting a reward and being human and taking a moment to just exist and not be perfect and to just eat that cheesecake. That cheesecake represented so much.
Right?
And I thought that was such a sweet moment. And I think it's an easy thing to miss. Like, I'm sure a lot of people watched it and they were like, why did they just talk about cheesecake for like 4 minutes? And they were like, okay, I guess we're on to another scene. But like that cheesecake was so important. It was so important. Represented like all of the work that Willow needs to do basically to feel better.
And also just the part of it she enjoys, like the cheesecake. Hopefully she's
Also
getting
just
hopefully she's getting so much cheesecake in the suitcase. There better be a chef. Do any characters cook? I don't think we have any chefs yet, but hopefully she's getting some good cheesecake.
I hope so. I really do.
But yeah, so this is not a question on the thing, and oh my gosh, I have so many questions for you that are just like not even on the thing. Let me turn on my lights first before I ask.
Yeah, it's been strange. Do you live in LA?
I live all the way on the other side. East Coast.
But you're flying in for the event? That makes me unbelievably happy. Oh my gosh.
I'm
so cool.
excited. You guys don't even understand. Like, it's like every time I talk to you and the other voice actors, I'm like, wow, they're so cool. I'm so excited to meet them in person. I'm like, can all of you come, please? I want to meet all of you. Especially now that I hear you're cosplaying. I'm so excited.
Good. That's awesome.
But my follow-up question, since we started talking more about Flutter Page, was what's very interesting, and I don't know why I didn't have it on the sheet. I was gonna ask your first impressions of Flutter Page, because you can really see the difference between both of them, where Flutter Page is more like she hasn't really lived much like life experience. So she's like this innocent, little baby child who just is like flying, which is like another sign of like freedom. And it's also pretty interesting that Willow taught her that skill as well. And it's like, but Willow, she's so closed off, like she wants to be left alone. But then you have Flutterpage, a child who's all innocent, who can fly, who's pretty much like the representation of freedom. So I was wondering if you had anything to say more about like the duality of like Flutterpage's character and your character.
Sure. So that harkens back to, you know, the dynamic between the hero and the helper. So, you know, she's the perfect helper. She is just getting in Willow's business over and over and over again, kind of wearing down her defenses, literally breaking into her home.
Right.
And like, you know, like there comes a point, and oh my gosh, that actually is something that I find so funny, is I had absolutely no idea that Willow threw Flutterpage out the window until I watched like the global version of the story. And I was like, I remember I had seen some, when I knew that it was coming out, I had seen some of like the Chinese playthrough. And so all of the subtitles are in Mandarin and I couldn't read them, but I was actually watching like a live playthrough, and so I could see people's comments, and they were commenting in English, reacting to what they were reading in Chinese on the screen, and they were like, she's just a child, don't do it. And I was like, what am I doing? What's happening?
What's going on?
And it was so funny. Oh, I laughed so hard. And so then when I saw the English version, I was like, oh my God, I chucked her out the window. And then I realized, you know, that she could fly and that she was like relentlessly breaking into my home. And like, you know, it's so funny that she's just like invading her space. But again, you know, she's the perfect foil to Willow. Exactly like you just said. She is bubbly, she is uninhibited, she is outgoing, she's never met a stranger, she can fly, she's just the sweetest, loveliest, like Samwise Gamgee character. You know, she's perfect for Willow, and it takes until you're later in the story to realize that even though Willow was like, oh, you know, like I'm tired, get out, and like, you know, she's not necessarily as kind to Flutterpage as you would expect her to be. She already has been like letting Flutterpage come over, and she's been giving her snacks, and she's been actually quite patient with the fact that this child is literally breaking into her home on a regular basis. This kid is showing up on her property, bothering her when she just wants to be alone, probably bothering her when she's dealing with these horrible internal monologues and she's feeling depressed and she's feeling anxious and paranoid. And this kid is just like relentlessly like, you know what's great? Sunshine and butterflies, and you know, it's just like wow. And so yeah, she's just the cutest thing, but it is really sweet when you notice that she's already been giving Flutterpage the time of day for quite a while. And I think that their relationship is just beautiful, and I love the idea that Willow could have adopted Flutterpage after the story ended. That's in my head, that's my head canon. So like, you know, nobody's confirmed or denied. A lot of people wish that also, but I think that their dynamic is unbelievably sweet, and yeah, and I love the idea that Willow adopted her afterwards.
Right? That's our headcanon, because I also believe that happened. They were both so cute. I love them so much.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes we all just need a Flutterpage to pull us out of our shell, you know? Like at the moment, it might seem like they're bothering you, but in reality, they're like helping you more than you could realize just in that moment. So yeah. Props to Flutterpage. Okay, next question. Were there any moments in recording where you had to pause because the material felt overwhelming? I know we talked about like this a lot, but was there any other like lines where you were like, dang? Because you mentioned earlier on how the whole room just like went silent, and then they were like, okay, next line. Like they all had to like think about it for a second because it was just that good, you know?
You're so sweet. You know, I can't really say that any of them are hard. There were times when I sort of wanted there to be like a little more spice in Willow's voice sometimes. So I think that my head was ready to start thinking about what Willow could be like in the future. Like in a happier situation, you know, Willow could be more funny. You know, Willow could like crack some jokes. And they wouldn't be these sort of like I love her, you know, dry, subtle humor throughout the show, but sometimes I kind of wanted her voice to be like a little bit less modulated so that she could be sort of like silly, you know, and she would just sort of make like a fun little joke and like maybe flirt or like, you know, just something. And so there were a couple of times when he was like, hey, you know, like remember to pull back and, you know, and remember this is Willow, you know, and so I would say that's it. Like there were just times when I kind of wanted to put a little bit more variety into a moment, but it was really important that she, you know, stay the person she is.
Yeah.
Because this is a really short span of time. You know, this isn't a long story. It's very quick, and you know, she doesn't have time to go through those kinds of changes. So actually, I got to keep those moments in my pocket and bring them back out when we did the Labyrinth of Madness update. When she gets she's gonna get her new skin. And
in the CN patch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the new patch, in the promos for it, Willow's a little more cheeky. Willow's having like a little bit more fun. It's like future Willow, and she's sort of like
with her new bestie Calabona.
we're like trading outfits with each other, and we're going on magical adventures, and like it's really cool because it's like a D&D inspired adventure. And so yeah, but you'll notice when you see like the promos and stuff for it that Willow's it's like cheeky Willow.
Yeah, now I can't wait to watch that. And like I forgot she got a skin in CN, but now I remember like her little cute little skin from Calabona. I think they traded because Calabona has a gymnast skin, so that's actually so cute that she just made friends with. Like I'm like out of everyone because Calabona also had a similar thing, but like hers wasn't like as, you know, heart-wrenching as Willow's, but like she also had her little vulnerable moment in the story where she felt like she was always the prey and like she could never, like, you know, so it's like I'm so glad they're friends and they're besties.
Me too. I think it's so sweet, and I just think it's so unbelievably precious that they like traded outfits. They like gifted each other outfits. And I think it's sweet, and I think the costume's really beautiful, and I've actually already started working on doing a cosplay of the new costume.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for that.
Sure, it'll be fun.
Okay, now we're getting into technical acting and voice work. So, how did you modulate Willow's voice to reflect her changes in mood, from sarcastic to broken to quietly hopeful? So, especially, let's get more into like the sassiness of it all, because Willow, she is all her comebacks are like gold. Like she was clocking everyone's tea. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because, you know, humans can convey so much in the tiniest little change in their voice. So one thing that I really love about sarcasm is that it can kind of stay within the same range, but there are just like these little inflections where you're just like, you know, like there's just these tiny little like oh, I don't know, it's totally, it sounds so delicious, you know, and then you're like, well, Does it sound delicious or does it not sound delicious? So I think it's cute that like sarcasm always kind of raises a question, you know, it kind of like leaves you squinting, like, did they actually mean that or not?
Right.
And in Willow's case, you know, like her voice just doesn't really change a lot in those moments. But I think you can hear the sarcasm and you can hear the voice go up and her kind of like, it's like just these little delicious drops of seeing her sense of humor that is in kind of like a dark place, you know, like she's in this frustrated place, and she's in a place of exasperation and exhaustion. And I think those are the times when it's the easiest for sarcasm to come out. And you know, and I love good sarcasm. There's a point where sarcasm can be like a red flag, you know, like it can kind of be this like you're basically waving around this fact that you need some time, you need to reflect and you know, give some thought to why you're kind of feeling aggressive or, you know, passive aggressive as it were. So, but those you can hear that like it's sort of a question and there's those upward inflections. And then when you're sad, it's like all of the air just kind of goes out of you for a second and your shoulders deflate and everything goes lower. And there's basically just like nothing left for you to put into your voice. It's just slow and it's tired, and you can kind of like hear the tightness up in your eyes, and it's incredible how little you really need to do in order to convey human emotion and to like let somebody know that you're sad. You can do that in a second. And you can let somebody know that you're angry or that you're exhausted, and people are so sensitive to what they hear and see in people's voices, and I think that's a really beautiful thing about being human, and why, you know, it's so wonderful to watch stories and play video games and you know, see theater, is because people love emotion and people love to see that other people are feeling and reacting, and it's easy to connect through emotion. And you know, it's okay to be cynical, you know, like I would consider myself to be a cynical person. I used to be more cynical, and I've worked through a lot of the sort of toxicity that came along with that. But by and large, I think people are very kind. They're very sensitive to the way other people feel, and people care about each other more than it's easy to think that they do. I think it's very easy to believe that people just don't care about others. But I find that most of the time that's like people feel overwhelmed or they feel powerless, you know, to respond to other people or to help them. But if you give people specific ways that they can help another person, they'll almost always come through. Like strangers will help you if they see you crying in public, or if they see that you need help in some way. If you do a charity drive, if you ask, you know, somebody to help you out, more often than you'd expect, they will come through, and they do care about each other. So that was a really long way of saying that it's tiny differences in voices that just immediately alert other people to how you're feeling, and I think that that's so cool.
Right. It's like, and I don't know if this is like a perfect way of saying it, but it's like those times where you're like, say something and then someone's like, are you okay? And then you just like start bawling out, because it's like trying to keep like the cover, but like it's not like, it's always gonna show at least a little bit to where, and people can sense that kind of thing, you know? And it's just like, it's just like one of those things. I like the way you just like, it's even the tiniest difference, like people can tell in a way, sort of. So it's like, and the fact that you're saying all this and this was your first voice acting role, wow. I'm like, whoa, you're like, dang. I'm like, I've learned so much.
You're so sweet. I love you. Oh my gosh.
I have though. It's like, it's like, it's just so much goes into just playing a character. It's not just walking into the studio and just being like, okay, I'm here, I'm clocked in, like I'm ready to go. Like, it's like you kind of, every part has to have some type of intention, and I think that's just so cool, which is why I just like, I'm so fascinated by voice acting, because I say this every episode, but you all always say something different about voice acting, and it's like you always, like, each piece of the puzzle, it's like you're getting a broader aspect of it, because people think that it's just like this thing where you just come in, say the lines, yada yada, but it's always more complicated than that. Like, not everything is as easy as you think it is, especially when it comes to voice acting. You gotta really embody the character that you're playing, like every step of the way and every aspect of it. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Was there a particular line that you found especially powerful or satisfying to deliver? Which I don't know if we kind of talked about this a bit, but if you have anything, any other lines?
That's a really, really good question.
Especially satisfying. I feel like that.
I think one of my favorite lines was when she's like, by all means, play on the grass. What could go wrong? And that was like one of the first things that I did. And it was like, I think it's the first thing that I say in the trailer. And I was like, I was so excited about it. It cracked me up. And especially when she's like rolling her eyes and she's like, just ridiculous. Those were super fun. And then actually, I think that my answer is the chanting. Like when she's like around the bonfire and she's saying her chants, because those were the other times when the director just let me loose. And they were like, we don't know what's gonna come out of you, so give it a go. And so I was so into it that he, like, afterwards he was like, okay, you know, like, slow down, witch, you know, like, oh my gosh, because I was in there and I was moving and like swaying, and I had my arms going up, and I was just sort of like tipping my head back and like really, really, really getting into it. And those were just so much fun. And those were similar, where like I finished and they were like, okay, we didn't know what you're gonna do, but yes. And then we just sort of like, you know, we moved on. And there were several players who contacted me after 2.3 came out, and they were like, really loved what you did, and I just wanted to let you know that like my English isn't great, but I was able to understand a lot, and I really, really, really loved when you were chanting, because the language was very simple and it was very like melodic and musical. And so they were like, I understood like basically every word, and I like got really into it. And I just wanted to let you know that like that was basically like my favorite part of the whole story, because it was just really fun to listen to as somebody who isn't like a perfect English speaker. And I found that really interesting. I would have never thought about that before, but like, you know, when I've tried to learn other languages, one of the easiest ways to do that is to listen to music, you know, with like simple words, like you listen to like a Spanish pop song and you kind of just listen to it over and over and over again, and you like understand every third word or something like that. But you know, it's usually simple language, and you can like just really, you know, get into it and like, you know, groove and feel like learning. And I thought that was sweet. I had like 3 or 4 like completely unrelated people just reach out and say like, I really loved your chanting, because I could understand it really, really well as a non-native English speaker. And it was fun. And I do remember those moments of just getting like so into it that I would look ahead a few lines and I would just close my eyes and just, you know, like let my arms move, and I would basically do like a ritual dance while I was doing it, and then I turn around, I'd like peep a few more lines, and then I would go back to it. And that was really fun. That was a nice memory, and something that surprised me about the way that people receive language and the way that people receive stories, because I never in a million years would have thought somebody would reach out and say, like, my favorite thing that you did was using your horrible singing voice to sing a song while you're dancing. No, nobody said that, but I'm not a good singer, so it was just very ironic for anything like musical I did with my voice to have been appreciated by anyone.
No, don't say that.
It was so true.
Hey, I thought you did a fabulous job, so I don't think anyone thought you had a horrible singing voice. Hey, I almost thought I was like, dang, is she a singer? Like, I thought you did. I thought, like, it's just like a lot of the more musical characters, I always like assume that they're like, they sing. Like
I could do the chanting because it was basically like melodic talking, and so Willow doesn't do any singing, which I was grateful for, because I was really
grateful for
being asked me to. But yeah, sometimes they have to kind of outsource a voice for something so that somebody can like sing opera or something like that. But yeah, I think most of our 1999 characters who sing, it's actually that person. There are exceptions, but I think it's usually that person, which I think is so cool.
Right. It's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Next question. How do you handle portraying complex emotions like bitterness and grief without overreacting or sounding too heavy-handed? So like overdoing it a bit. Like, how do you keep it like cool?
So that keep it cool. Well, that's just what I do. I'm a very cool person. There's nothing cool about me.
No, you're so cool.
I'm warm. I'm the opposite of cool. But the answer to that question is actually something technical.
Ooh.
One of the very beautiful things, probably my favorite thing about voiceover, is that you don't have to memorize anything. That is one of the most difficult things about film acting, is that you're far more in your head about getting these lines word perfect. And as you rise in the ranks of the sort of jobs that you're getting, it gets more serious. And there'll be like somebody off in a tent 3 rooms away who's making sure that you literally say every single word perfectly. And if you did a take and it was perfect, except that you said like "an" instead of "the," you do it again. And those are the bigger sets. Like it's a big deal.
Oh.
And so it gets really nerve-wracking, and it's something that makes me uncomfortable sometimes, is how anxious I get about, like, just, am I gonna get out there and say the words wrong? And it's a big fear that can really get to you. And so when you're doing voiceover, there's no camera, and you're just in a booth with a microphone, and you can flub a line and do it again. And you can also just read your lines right off of the iPad. And so with every bit of intention, I barely read my lines before I got into the studio. I skimmed them. I had an idea of what I was in for, and then I just went in, and I treated it like an improv session, basically. And so line by line, I read it, and then next to it, there was like a direction, and the director would add to it or clarify. But it was basically like, here's the line, say it, sad. And then the director would be like, here's why you're sad. And then I would just say the line. And it was like the second time I'd ever seen the line. And so that kept it fresh, that kept it authentic, and that allowed me, as me, bringing my truth to the character, meaning my own personal interpretation that I have not rehearsed until it sounds canned. I'm able to just read it off the iPad second time I'm seeing it, just been given an instruction, and if I didn't do exactly what they wanted, I could do it again. And so like kind of all the pressure's off. It feels fun. It feels in the moment.
Yes.
And they might love what you do, and then they're like, try it angry, or like try it like a cheerleader, but like a 1930s cheerleader, you know. And, you know, who knows what they're gonna say, but that's what makes it fun, because then whatever you do in the moment in response to the direction you just received is going to be the most organic thing you can possibly do. And so everything that you heard me say as Willow and young Willow was like the second time I'd ever seen the line, the first time I'd actually read it, and I had just been given a direction and I did it, and there you go. And so that's the answer. And you can't always do voiceover like that, but usually like what I've learned since then is that you can absolutely do that. It's important to sort of like know what's going to happen when you get in there, but the freshest, most genuine and real performance you're possibly going to get is just like walking in and just being very present and just taking direction line by line. And that keeps things from sounding overdone, because you kind of can't. It's like whatever your natural reaction is to it, and you haven't been rehearsing it for a week obsessively and like, you know, going over it in your head while you're in the shower and like while you're driving to the store, and you don't have any time to get anxious about it or to second guess it, and you just use your instincts. So yeah, I wish that I could do voiceover every day of my life. What I got to do with Willow was like the purest, most honest, in the moment acting I've done in a very long time, and it felt so good. It was so much fun.
Oh, that's actually that's such a nice answer, because again, that's something you wouldn't think about at first. Like I was genuinely thinking like even voice actors had to remember their lines before they got into the studio. Like I'm like, they probably rehearsed it like a bunch of times, and then they walk in and they have it all right here and they know exactly how they're gonna do it. But
nope, there's no need. It's right in front of you. It's on an iPad right in front of your face.
Maybe it's because I can't read, and that's why I'm like, they probably have to memorize everything. Like reading, it's probably so hard. Like I can't imagine doing that. But it's like the idea of having the most raw reaction, which I feel like is also like a talent, because I feel like if I were to step into a studio right now and they were to give me lines and instruction, I would say it in the most monotone way possible, because I wouldn't know where to even start with any of that stuff. And so that's why I know it's just like a talent to be able to just do it like first, second try, okay, done. Or like you just see it, try it out, and then just do it like on the spot. Like that is just like, to me, I don't know how y'all do it. I could not.
Well, to be fair, that also comes with a lot of time. So if you decided right now that you wanted to be a voice actor, I would recommend to you that you do two things. And one of them is just take acting classes, and you stay in them and you grind for like a year. And I'm talking just normal acting classes. And learn to act, learn to channel your emotions, learn to kind of go over things until you feel established, until you feel comfortable, until you've sort of made a habit of being in tune with those emotions, and you can bring them in and sort of let them fall out of your body, which takes years. So this was my first. Oh, and the other thing I would say is take business classes. Because it is a business, and the more you understand about the way businesses work, the better you'll feel about the way things function, the smarter actor you can be, and the better you can take care of yourself. Then I would tell you to spend several years pursuing the craft. Study more, read everything, show up, network, talk about yourself, make demo. Like, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and I have been professionally acting this is my 5th year.
Ooh.
And so I just did Willow last year. That was my first voice job. But I've been cast in over 50 films and TV shows, and that's like short films, that's features, that's, you know, big stuff, that's tiny stuff, that's like, you know, some guy decided that he wanted to try his hand at making a film, and, you know, his wife was his like assistant director. That's all the way up to being on huge sets. So it's also a lot of time. It's a lot of like discipline. It's a lot of continuing to show up even though you're getting rejected a lot, or you're not getting feedback for what you are and are not doing right. Sometimes, like most of the time, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just not who they chose. And you know, like everybody was really good and they just needed to go with something, and you didn't do what they wanted, and that doesn't mean that your performance wasn't great. You know, and like it's a lot of mental gymnastics, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of training. So, you know, I promise you that if you put 4 years into training, getting yourself out there, taking every job you can possibly find, getting rejected over and over again, continuing to show up and doing more auditions, you would eventually get to a point where you'd feel very comfortable with every aspect of the work. And once you got cast doing voice and you stepped into the studio, you would have 4 years behind you of training. So, you know, 4 years ago, I would have felt exactly the same way. So I think that you would be wonderful. I don't think that you would step in and be monotone. I just think that it comes with time, and that's it's hard to be like at the base of a mountain and look up and see the top of the mountain and think like that is so far away. But if you just start climbing little by little and take care of yourself on the way, a couple years from now you'll realize you're halfway up the mountain. You know, like it's just time, and that's it. And I've been doing this for years. You know, it's not like I just, you know, stepped in and did it. So yeah, but I think you'd be a wonderful voice actor.
Thank you. I might need to try. I feel like I have to get you guys in one video to rate me voice acting your character. I feel like that'd be so funny.
That would be hilarious.
That'd be so funny. You just gave me that idea. I'm like, I should try that. We're gonna put your advice to the test. I'm kidding. But we're gonna try it.
I would love that.
We're gonna try it. I actually have to try that now. Okay, that's gonna be so funny. Reflective questions. Whoa.
Cool. Love it.
So, if Willow had a happier alternate universe version of herself, how would you imagine her sounding?
I think that she would sound like kind of the tone that I went for in the 2.7 patch, where she's like, I just really wanted Willow to get to a point within like, I don't know, like a few months to a year after the event ended. I just want her to get to a place where she's feeling a little more loose, you know, like she's feeling better and healthier, and she's like going outside and maybe sitting under a giant umbrella with like some huge shades, which is totally fine. That's what I do. But yeah, I picture her like spending a little more time outside, taking care of her garden, and just being like a little cheekier and, you know, going on adventures like the one that she gets to go on. I definitely would love to see a more self-assured Willow. You know, one who speaks more kindly to herself, especially her inner monologue. A more Irish Willow, a sillier Willow. Yeah, I just kind of want to see like a silly, fun, more relaxed, kind of flirty Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her, and I keep confusing, is it Caroline or Charlotte?
Caroline. So
Caroline.
Charlotte's Willow's real name. Her name is Charlotte.
Oh, it's like all these C names. I was like, there's so many. Caroline. Yes, her would just like hanging out with Caroline. They're just chilling. You know what I think would be interesting? Which is one question that I asked someone else, but I kind of want to ask it to you. If Willow had a YouTube channel, what kind of content do you think Willow would make?
Oh, man. I feel like she would like do kind of odd crafts, like arts and crafts, and she would do like ASMR crafting, and like she wouldn't always show her face, but like sometimes she would, and she would like make some like silly joke or be like, hey, I gotta go, you know, like tuck Flutter Page into bed, or you know, something like that, I'll be right back. And I think she would sort of play like moody like synth music,
Yeah.
and like beautiful like Celtic instrumental stuff, and she would just sort of talk about random interests, I feel like.
Yeah. You know what
Yeah.
I think Flutter Page would start the YouTube channel, and then like slowly Willow would just appear more and more and more until it's like definitely more Willow's channel.
That would be hilarious. It would be like a reality show.
Exactly.
Like Willow, like Flutter Page would be like secretly taping her all the time. She's like, Mom, what are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Yeah, I think that would be really sweet. I like that idea.
Yeah,
kind of
at
take it over,
first-
and I think Willow would also like stream video games for sure.
Yeah, no. Like she has to play. What's the name of that game? I was thinking like kind of like Pokemon-ish, like, you know, because she has all those like those critters in her yard. So like she would play a little bit of that. I don't know. Like I feel like I kind of imagine her as a Nintendo girly.
Definitely. I could definitely see that. I'm a Nintendo and PlayStation girly myself.
Ooh.
So yeah, I could
I
definitely
see
see
your
her being
earring.
Nintendo. Yes, I have my little fire flowers. Piranha plants. I absolutely love Nintendo, and I love the idea of Willow playing Nintendo, especially because it would be so funny for her to like get to come forward so far in time that she like had a YouTube channel and was like playing video games and stuff, and like what a gigantic jump that would be from, you know, her time period. She would just be amazing. Like I would love if there was just like a segment of the game where Willow gets to time travel, and she goes
Honestly.
from like, would that be incredible? Like she
Right.
gets all like cheeky, and she's like trying cheesecake in different places around the world,
And
and
like
like,
vlogging
you know,
it. Like, I'm gonna
yeah.
eat this cheesecake, guys. Let's rate it 1 through 10. And just like eats it.
Sweet. Yeah,
That'd be
I would absolutely
perfect.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I could totally imagine that. I would love that. I feel like it'd be so fun if we just had like, it doesn't even have to be like a real patch, but like a patch where they're in present day, and it's like seeing all the characters, just like how they would interact if they were like in a present day timescape. Like they'd be like, oh my gosh, is this like boba tea? Like what is boba tea? And they're like, wow, this is so good and innovative, and like stuff like that. And like Willow will be drinking her matcha and being like, oh yeah, no, this is good. Like that's I would love that so much.
Yeah, me too. I really would. Let's write Blue Pac a letter.
Please,
And let them know.
please.
Be like, hey guys, you're not super busy, so you know, like you don't have like a whole game to make, you know, or anything like that. So we have some ideas. We have
Right.
notes. That would be really funny.
So just get us in the writing room. You hear us?
Give us a job,
Right.
please.
Like
Let us
we
run your
can help.
socials.
Yeah, we could just do like a little small segments of just like the characters, like those little comic strips. You know how they do those comic strips? Like one of those, please.
Oh, that would be so cute.
I could imagine it now, please. We could call it Reverse 2025.
Yes.
Instead of the storm happening in 1999, it happens in 2025. So everyone's a millennial or something. I don't know. Maybe don't put me in the writing room. Maybe don't put me in the writing room. I'm starting to. I don't know if you would like that.
Love it.
Okay, next question. Was there a moment during recording where you felt like you fully became Willow? This is me. This is real. Supposed to be. Yeah. Like one of those moments.
The whole time, I guess. Like, you know, not like in an unhealthy way. Like, I know that I'm not Willow. But like, yeah, I felt very connected to what I was doing from the first line.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the closest that I could possibly feel to the character was just immediate.
That's the correct answer. That was the only correct answer, by the way. All the whole time. I'm kidding, but that is like that's I feel like how it is for a lot of the characters, because like in order to like you have to start from the beginning, so you really have to embody them throughout, because you need to know how they transition from the beginning to where they are, you know, at the end, because you want to see like the changing character. And I'd say Willow's even like the character that changed the most. Like I feel like for character progression, hers was huge. And it was like there's a lot of characters, you know, start off like with a very depressing past, but like that depressing past is more like showing their character, whereas Willow like used it to sort of in a way build on her upcoming character a little more. Like she used it to progress rather than used it to like explain herself in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. I do have a character in mind when I say this, but I'm like, there are characters like where they have like a past, and like that past is sort of explaining more or less how they are now, rather than Willow is how she's gonna work past that in a way. And that's just how they wrote the story for her character, and it really fit as well. So it, you know, it's just, I understand what you mean when you say you have to be Willow from the very start, because you really do if you want to truly understand the progression of her character. So
Definitely.
okay, next question. If you could say something directly to Willow as yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that I understand her pain. I understand all of the choices that she's made. I understand why it's easier to isolate, why it's easy to decide just to not trust anybody. I would congratulate her for the progress that she's made and how brave she was to just go ahead and come out of her house and, you know, make the decisions that she did, and how much she grew and saving the day. And I would tell her that I'm really proud of her, and that it's a really big deal that she did the work to grow and change while still staying in tune with who she is. And I think it's really beautiful that she was able to attract and embrace people who will help her feel less alone. Because something that's always been really important to me, especially as somebody who was, you know, unpopular when I was younger, and I'm not really any more popular now that I'm older. I'm more comfortable in my skin. I feel better about everything that I've been through. I feel more calm. I feel more wise. Kind of feel better in every way because I'm more comfortable with myself and with the fact that I am a quality over quantity sort of person as far as the company I keep goes. And so I would tell her that I'm very proud of her for finding her tribe and for, you know, for embracing the people who kind of didn't want her to stay the way she was, and, you know, just keeping those people in her sphere. Because I think one of the most important things you have to remember when you're somebody who prefers to be alone, especially when part of that is that people have treated you so poorly, is that you need people. You know, you have to have somebody in your life, and that doesn't have to be a romantic partner, and that doesn't have to really be anything specific. What's important is, like you were saying earlier, you had a professor who would come and notice that you were alone and invite you to come talk about the things that got you excited, and that resonated with you, and you remember that person, and that person means so much to you. And I think that one person you can connect with and embrace who you are with is more important than 100 people who like you.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that I would just say that I'm really proud of her for branching out and leaving the house and deciding that she wanted to change a little bit and feel more like her old self. And I would just say I'm so proud of her.
No, that was also sweet. Like, I couldn't
Love
have said it
you.
any better than myself. Like, any better myself. Like, that was so good. Like, I'm sure a lot of people who played, you know, the game and who played that story and who were also impacted by Willow can definitely relate with that as well. And that leads me to our final question. How do you hope players who struggle with depression, disability, or perfectionism feel when they experience Willow's story?
Oh. I hope that they feel seen. I hope that they know that they matter. I hope that they know that there are other people out there who feel at least a little bit the way that they do. Yeah, I hope people feel less alone when they see Willow's story, and I hope that Willow's story in general helped people just with empathy. I think empathy is a skill. I think it's something that, you know, at its core, it's inherent. You know, it's something that's human, and we, especially kids, you know, will feel just automatic empathy for people when they see that somebody's in trouble, when they see that somebody's struggling. And as we get older, it's harder to care about people because a lot of times, you know, sometimes people are tricking you into helping them, and sometimes people are too difficult to help, you know, and a lot of times people give up on helping other people because it just becomes so overwhelming, or it's too hard, or it was disappointing, or, you know, it just gets exhausting when you realize how many people need help, I guess, when you get older. How many people need a smile from you, how many people need a conversation from somebody, how many people need a hand. It's overwhelming when you think about like the great scope of how people can help each other, and I think a lot of people give up. And I think one of the most important things about art and about films and video games is that we tell stories that remind people of things that they already know, but they've sort of forgotten. And I think what I loved the most about Willow's story was that she was very human, and that it's difficult. I think it would be difficult to get through the story without feeling some empathy for her. She's a lovable character. She's not necessarily a likable character. And, you know, a lot of people won't watch her story and think like, what a fun person. But I think most people will get through the story and say, oh, I loved that character. And I just think empathy is such an important thing. Like I said, I feel like it's a skill. I feel like it's something you have to hone. You have to be reminded of it. You have to decide that you want to be empathetic and that you want to care about other people. And I hope that people who related to her and people who didn't all felt empathy for Willow, and therefore felt more empathy for people in general. And remembered that, you know, we never really know what's going on with somebody. We never really know what people are thinking or what they're struggling with, and it's really important to be kind and to remember that, you know, somebody might be a little bristly, but it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. And most of the time it means that they're hurting.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't unkind to other people because they're feeling good.
Wow. That was a perfect, oh my gosh. I hope you all felt that the same way I did. I think that was definitely a perfect way to like summarize just like everything, because at the end of the day, that's why we all love Reverse 1999, and we all love the characters, the voice actors, like the writing, everything about it, is because a lot of the characters do help. Like, it does like shed a light on a lot of things we don't even like think about, or it helps like expose us to other people's experiences that very much could reflect real life experiences of people around you. It helps you get a better understanding, because not only do they write what's happening to the character, but like what's going on inside their head, So it pretty much just exposes everyone to like more life experiences than you would probably just get if you weren't playing the game. That's why I love it so much, because I've learned so many different things about myself, as well as the characters, as well as about other people. So, you know, I always thank you guys, the voice actors, everyone. Thank Madeleine. Woo! And thank you guys for watching. And also make sure you follow her. And look, it's Pearl, Flutter Pearl. Make sure you follow Flutter Pearl, the real voice actor of Willow. I'm kidding.
The real Flutter Pearl.
Flutter Pearl. I'm kidding. Thank you, Madeleine. Thank you, Flutter Pearl. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And all her stuff will be down in the description. So make sure you check her out, as well as her cosplays. Okay, please. Flutter Pearl and her Willow cosplay as well, down in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next Verse 1999 VA interview. Bye!